It was past midnight when Daniel arrived at the train station, exhausted from his long trip. He had just attended a business conference in France and now needed to return home. As he approached the ticket counter, the station master, an old man with tired eyes, looked at him strangely. "Where are you headed at this hour?" the man asked. "Home," Daniel replied. The station master hesitated before saying, "You can't catch a train here. You need to go to the next station." Daniel sighed. He was already exhausted, but he had no choice. He took a taxi, and as he stepped out at the next station, the driver gave him a strange warning. "This station is old. Too many bad stories. Be careful, sir." Daniel shrugged it off and walked onto the empty platform. It was eerily silent, the only sound being the distant hum of an approaching train. A heavy mist surrounded the tracks. The dim lights flickered overhead. The train arrived. Its old, metallic body groaned as it stopped, doors sliding open with a slow hiss. Daniel hesitated for a moment before stepped inside. The carriage was mostly empty, only a few passengers scattered here and there. A woman with a baby sat in front of him. An elderly couple sat to the side. They all stared at him in an unsettling way, their expressions blank, unreadable. Daniel gave a polite smile, but when the woman smiled back, her grin was just a little too wide. As the train moved, Daniel noticed something strange. The mist outside was too thick. He couldn't see the landscape. No one came to check his ticket, and the train hadn't stopped at any station for over an hour. Feeling uneasy, he turned to the woman in front of him. "Did anyone check your ticket?" he asked. The woman simply shook her head without speaking. Moments later, the elderly couple stood up. Without a word, they walked toward the front of the train, leaving their bags behind. Maybe they're just going to the restroom, Daniel thought. But an hour passed and they never returned. Then the woman and her baby stood up and walked away too. They left everything behind. Daniel waited, but they never came back. Something was very, very wrong. He decided to investigate. As he walked through the carriages, he realized every seat was empty but filled with abundant bags, jackets, and personal belongings. A sick feeling crept into his stomach. Where did everyone go? He ran toward the driver's cabin. The door was locked. He knocked. No response. He pushed against it, but it wouldn't budge. There has to be someone here, he thought. But when he turned, his breath caught in his throat. At the far end of the train, a shadowy figure stood watching him. The train lights flickered. For a brief moment, the figure disappeared. Daniel's chest tightened. He ran back through the rain, searching for anyone, but he was alone. Completely alone. his breath came in short gasps as he stumbled back to his seat. That's when he noticed something written on the fogged-up window beside him. Until the end, don't sleep. If you sleep, it will be your end. His head started spinning. He felt heavy. His exhaustion overwhelmed him. He tried to fight it, but his eyelids grew heavy, and then he slipped into darkness. A sound jolted Daniel awake, a whisper. His own voice. Daniel. The sound was coming from the driver's cabin. Heart pounding, he slowly stood up. His body felt heavy, his limbs sluggish, as if the train itself was draining him. As he stepped into the next carriage, the lights flickered violently. In that brief moment of darkness, the shadowy figure was closer. The train groaned. The windows rattled. Daniel swallowed hard and kept moving, forcing himself toward the driver's cabin. The whispering continued. Daniel, come closer. It was his exact voice. He reached the door and hesitated. The air behind it felt wrong, like something hungry was waiting. The train lights flickered again, and the figure was now right behind him. Daniel spun around. Nothing was there. His breath was ragged. His hands trembled as he reached for the door handle, bracing himself. Then, before he could turn the knob, the lights shut off completely. Total darkness. And in the silence, he felt breathe against his ear. Wake up. Daniel jolted awake to the sound of screeching brakes. The train was slowing down. Outside the window, he saw a platform, a real station. Relief washed over him. It was all a dream, he thought. The train came to a halt and he quickly stood up, grabbing his bag. He stepped onto the platform, his legs shaky. The cold air hit him, waking him up even more. He turned to look at the train one last time. That's when his heart stopped. Through the window of the carriage, he saw himself. Another Daniel was still sitting inside the train, staring blankly out the window, expressionless. The train doors slid shut. The engine rumbled to life. The other Daniel slowly turned his head and locked eyes with him. The train pulled away into the mist, disappearing into the darkness. Daniel stood frozen on the platform, his own breath shallow and shaky. If that was me in the train, then who am I now? A sharp wrenching filled his ears. The station master walked up behind him and asked, "Sir, where are you headed?" Daniel tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. He turned back toward the tracks, but the train was gone. Only the mist remained. The end or the beginning?